The night was quiet on Earth, skies were calm, cities alive with their usual noise and people busy with their daily lives. But far above the planet, deep in space, something strange was moving. It was not a ship, not a star, but a signal. A voice carried across light years, and this signal was not friendly. It first appeared on radio towers in South America, then it broke into satellite transmissions over Europe. Within minutes it was everywhere. Televisions, phones, computers, all showing the same message. A voice, cold and mechanical, spoke. In every language at once, its words froze billions of people. The voice said, "People of Earth, you are growing too fast, too dangerous. Your weapons grow sharper. Your machines grow stronger. The galaxy has noticed. The Galactic Council has spoken. Submit to our rule or be destroyed." Across the planet, silence followed. Airplanes landed, traffic stopped, and people stared at their screens. Children cried. Parents held them close. Soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. The threat was clear. Earth had been judged by powers far beyond human reach. The Galactic Council was real, and they had found us. In Washington, alarms rang in. Underground bunkers, leaders rushed to secret rooms asking the same question. Is this real? In Beijing, generals demanded to see the source of the message. In Moscow, scientists checked again and again. There was no doubt. The signal came from deep space, and in small villages, in towns, in crowded cities, ordinary people whispered to each other. Why us? Why now? The message played again, over and over. Each time it ended with the same chilling warning. Submit or be destroyed. It was not a request, it was a deadline. But no time limit was given, and that made it worse. The world waited, not knowing if tomorrow would bring fire from the sky. In a quiet observatory in Chile, a young scientist named Rosa stared at the data. She saw the signal bouncing off satellites, spreading like fire. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "They know everything about us. They have been watching." Her colleague, an older man named Dr. Alvarez, replied in a low voice, "If they know us, then they know we will not bow easily." His words carried both hope and fear. Meanwhile, in the skies above Earth, telescopes searched. Was there a ship, a fleet, a weapon pointed at the planet? But space looked empty, only stars and silence. This silence felt heavier than any sound. It meant the Council could strike at any moment, unseen. News spread faster than the signal itself. Across social media, people argued. Some said surrender was the only way to survive, others shouted that humanity should fight. One post went viral, a simple phrase, "We are Earth. We kneel to no one." Millions shared it, millions feared it. The world was divided, but one thing was certain, no one could ignore the threat. In the United Nations, leaders gathered in secret, voices rose, hands slammed tables, fear mixed with anger. The president of one nation said, "If we surrender, we live as slaves." Another replied, "If we resist, we may not live at all." For the first time in history, every powerful nation sat at the same table, facing the same danger. But no one knew the right answer back in space. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, alien leaders watched their screens. They saw humans panic, their confusion, their fear. Some laughed, saying, "They are children, they will bow." Others warned, "Do not underestimate them. History shows they fight even when they should not." The Council believed their threat was enough. But deep inside, some members were uneasy. They knew Earth's story, wars, revolutions, survival against impossible odds, and they feared the reply that might come. On Earth, days passed like hours. Every night people looked up at the stars, wondering which one held their enemy. Every morning they woke up expecting the sky to burn. But still no attack came, no ship appeared, only silence, broken by the memory of that message. It was as if the galaxy was waiting for Earth to speak. And then, something began to change. Leaders grew tired of fear. Scientists demanded to search deeper. Generals demanded a plan. And across the world, people whispered a question louder and louder. What will Earth say back? The message had arrived, but the reply had not. And somewhere in the shadows, in secret rooms, plans were already forming. Humanity was not just listening, it was preparing, and the galaxy did not know what was coming. Far away from Earth, beyond, nebulae and dying suns, a great chamber floated among the stars. It was older than most civilizations, carved from an asteroid that had been hollowed into a throne world. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, the place where empires spoke, argued and judged. Here, thousands of voices rose, alien languages clashing like storms, all focused on one single subject, Earth. The chamber glowed with soft blue light, shining on creatures of every shape and size. Tall beings with crystal skin, lizard-like rulers with burning eyes, floating, minds inside orbs of glass, winged creatures perched on pillars, and silent machines that spoke in tones colder than ice. They were all different, yet bound by the same purpose, to keep the galaxy under control. But today that control felt fragile. High above the floor, on a golden platform, the Speaker of the Council raised his staff. At once, the voices fell silent. The speaker's body shimmered like liquid metal, shifting its form as it spoke. The humans have been warned. They will surrender or they will burn, it declared. Some aliens nodded, convinced, but others shifted uneasily. A voice came from the shadows, slow and deep. It was a reptilian warlord from the Zarkesh Empire, his scales shining under the lights. You think they will bow? You think a species that destroys itself in war after war will surrender? He hissed. The chamber stirred, whispers spreading like fire. They are reckless, another voice said, a creature with 6 glowing eyes. Their machines advance faster than ours predicted. Their numbers multiply without fear. They dig into their planet until nothing is left. If they spread to the stars, nothing will stop them. From the far end of the chamber, a shimmering insectoid queen raised her wings. Her voice clicked and echoed. Humans fight for resources. They fight for power. They fight even when there is nothing to gain. A threat may only feed their pride. Their answer may not be silence, but defiance. The speaker slammed its staff again, anger flickering in its metallic form. They are children, no more. Their world is fragile. One strike and they are gone, it said. But the chamber was divided. Some members remembered history. They remembered when small worlds had risen against greater powers, when weak species had turned into conquerors. The word human already carried fear in some corners of the galaxy, whispered by traders and scouts who had visited Earth's orbit in secret. Stories of endless human wars, of weapons built to destroy entire cities, of people who would rather die than surrender. And now, with Earth answering a council message, the unknown was worse than any weapon. A machine intelligence, named Voxian, spoke next, its voice sharp as blades. We analyzed human behavior. They respect strength, but they also answer threats with threats. They do not kneel easily. They are not like the others we absorbed, the speaker hissed. Then we will crush them quickly. They will not even have time to resist. But even Voxian paused. And what if we strike and fail? What if their anger spreads like a storm across the stars? The chamber grew louder again, voices rising into chaos. One alien shouted that humans should be enslaved. Another argued they should be erased. Another said they should be left alone, until they left their planet. But silence fell when an ancient being older than all others finally spoke. It was the archivist, a creature of pure light, whose memory stretched back millions of years. Its glow dimmed as it said, "You forget history. You forget the fall of Tyrellus, the burning of Kor, the uprisings of the silent worlds. All began when small voices refused to bow. Humans are not the first to be threatened, but they may be the last." Fear spread across the chamber like cold mist. The speaker raised its staff again, but this time its voice was less certain. They will not dare fight the council. No one ever has. No one survives it. But doubt had been planted, and doubt was dangerous. As the debate continued, hidden, observers sent reports racing across the galaxy. Merchants, mercenaries, and spies carried the news. Earth had been threatened, and its reply was coming. Some worlds laughed, calling humans foolish. Others prepared their fleets, fearing the storm that might follow, whispers began. What if Earth refuses? What if Earth fights back? Inside the chamber, the speaker gave the final words. We wait for their reply. If they kneel, they live. If they resist, we erase them. The staff struck the floor. The decision was sealed, but among the shadows, eyes glowed with unease. Some believed the speaker was right that Earth would break, but others feared that the galaxy had just made its greatest mistake. And far away, on a small blue planet circling an ordinary star, humans were preparing to answer. The council thought Earth was a child, but they had forgotten one truth about children. Children grow, and sometimes they grow into something their parents can no longer control. Beneath the surface of the Earth, deep under layers of steel and concrete, hidden rooms came alive. It was not one bunker, not one country, but many, spread across the world, connected by encrypted lines no ordinary person could trace. Here, the leaders of nations, generals of armies, and the brightest minds of science gathered in secret. They were enemies yesterday, but today they shared the same fear, the same problem, the same enemy. The room was wide, filled with screens showing stars, maps of the Earth, and lines of code. Voices clashed, some loud with anger, some heavy with worry, some trembling with fear. The threat from the Galactic Council had not faded from their minds. It echoed like a curse. Submit or be destroyed. And now the question was no longer if Earth should reply, but how. The president of one nation stood, his voice shaking. We are facing something greater than us. We cannot win against the galaxy. Surrender means survival, he said. Another leader slammed her hand on the table, her eyes burning. Survival as slaves, survival without freedom. What is the point of living if we kneel? The room grew louder, sides forming quickly. Surrender or resistance, fear or pride. At the far end of the table, a general with silver hair and sharp eyes finally spoke. His voice was calm, but every word carried steel. I have studied history. I have fought wars, and I know this. When humanity is cornered, it does not kneel, it bites. Some nodded, others shook their heads, but no one could deny his words carried truth. Then came the scientists, men and women with tired faces and restless hands. One of them, a young woman named Aisha, spread images across the table. They showed missiles, satellites, railguns, weapons humans had built for each other. Her voice cracked. This is all we have. If they strike from the stars, our weapons are nothing, our chances are nothing. Another scientist, older and wiser, leaned forward. But we do not only have weapons. We have something they fear more. We have our will, our unity, our history of survival. The arguments grew, louder, hotter, the room filled with smoke from hurried cigarettes and the sharp smell of coffee. Some shouted to prepare for surrender, others shouted to prepare for war. But in the center of the table lay silence. The silence of waiting for someone to give an answer. A military strategist finally broke it, his voice low. If we do not reply, they will take silence as weakness, he said. If we beg, they will see us as prey. Another added, if we fight, they will come with fire, whispered a diplomat. For a moment it seemed there was no way forward, no choice without death. Then the general with silver hair leaned back, his eyes narrowing. What if, he said slowly, we do not reply with fear, not with surrender, not with begging, but with something else. Something that makes the galaxy think twice before touching us. All eyes turned to him. He did not smile. He only continued. A message, short, simple, but powerful. A message that says we are not prey, we are not slaves, we are not weak. A message that reminds them that Earth does not bow. The room grew quiet. Even those who wanted surrender paused. There was something dangerous, something daring in his words. But there was also something undeniably human. Earth had always been divided, always been at war with itself. And yet when an enemy rose from outside, humanity had a strange way of standing together. A young diplomat whispered, what if this message makes them think we are declaring war? The general's eyes gleamed. Then let them think, fear is a weapon too. The words hung heavy in the air. For the first time since the signal arrived, the leaders felt something other than fear. They felt the fire of defiance. Aisha, the chief scientist, tapped her fingers nervously on the table. If we choose this path, there is no going back. They may see us as enemies. They may come for us at once. But another scientist replied, his voice steady. If we kneel, we lose everything. Before they even strike, better to risk war than to live as shadows. Slowly nods spread around the room one by one, until the silence turned into agreement. The decision was not made with joy, not with confidence, but with necessity. The leaders of Earth chose to reply, not with surrender, not with apology, not with weakness, but with words that would echo through the galaxy. In the corner of the room, a screen flickered with static. Technicians prepared the systems, their hands moving fast. Lines of code ran across monitors, satellites aligned, transmitters hummed. The reply was being born. Every heart in the room beat faster, every eye stayed locked on the glowing screen. The fate of humanity was about to be spoken. As the message was prepared, the general whispered again, almost to himself, "This is not just our answer. This is our declaration of what it means to be human." And somewhere, deep in the silence of space, the Galactic Council waited. They thought Earth was weak, they thought Earth would kneel. But in this hidden room, humanity had made a choice, and that choice would shake the stars. The room was silent when the message was ready. Every leader, every general, every scientist stared at the glowing words on the screen. It was not long, it was not complex, but it carried weight heavier than any weapon. The technicians hesitated before pressing send, as if they feared the galaxy itself would hear their heartbeat. The message said only this: we do not bow, we do not kneel, we do not surrender. Nothing more, nothing less. No promises of peace, no threats of war, only a declaration of identity. But in those words, the fire of humanity burned brighter than any fleet when the signal left Earth. Carried by satellites and boosted by deep space relays, the world held its breath. Billions of people stared at their screens, waiting. Some prayed, some cried, some cheered, but all of them knew something had changed. For the first time, Earth had spoken not as divided nations, but as one voice. That voice was not afraid. Across the stars, in the heart of the Galactic Council, the reply arrived. The chamber filled with the translated words, sharp and defiant, echoing across the great hall. The speaker's metallic body flickered as the message repeated, "We do not bow. We do not kneel. We do not surrender." The council froze. Some aliens burst into laughter, their voices mocking. "Arrogant children," one shouted. "They think 3 sentences can save them." But others fell silent, unease crawling through their hearts. For they heard something different in the words. They heard not weakness, not begging, but challenge. The reptilian warlord rose from his seat, his eyes burning. "Do you not hear it? This is not defense, this is not fear, this is war. They speak as conquerors, not as prey." The chamber shook with noise, some denying, some agreeing. The insectoid queen spread her wings, her voice clicking sharply. "They are reckless, yes. But do you not see they are not afraid? They are telling us they would rather burn than kneel." The speaker slammed its staff, its voice cold. "They are nothing. A single strike will erase them. Do not tremble at words." But the archivist, glowing with dim light, spoke softly. "Words are not just sound. Words shape history. Words create fear, and fear spreads faster than fire." The chamber grew restless. On distant worlds, alien spies carried the message across empires. In marketplaces, in shadowy taverns, whispers began. "Did you hear? Earth defied the council. No one defies the council." But they did, and they did not stutter. They spoke like warriors. The story spread faster than the council could control, and with every retelling, the legend of Earth grew. Back on Earth, the reply changed everything. People who had been afraid now felt pride for the first time. Children in small villages whispered not of fear, but of bravery. Soldiers stood taller. Workers moved with purpose. Leaders found strength in the echo of those words. It was not just a reply, it was a spark that united humanity like never before. But unity also brought danger. Satellites picked up strange movements near the edge of the solar system, signals not of Earth but of something else, something watching, something waiting. Scientists warned that the Council might not just listen, they might act. And if they acted, the reply would be the reason. In the secret bunker, the general with silver hair spoke again. His eyes scanned the reports, his voice steady. "We have declared who we are. Now we must prepare for what comes." The leaders nodded, their fear not gone, but reshaped into resolve. Humanity had crossed a line, there was no turning back. In the Galactic Council, the speaker raged. It demanded a fleet to be sent, demanded Earth's destruction before the words spread further. But not all agreed. The reptilian warlord hissed, "Strike them and you risk waking a storm, ignore them and you risk looking weak." The insectoid queen clicked. "If they fight like they speak, we may bleed more than we expect." The archivist whispered, "We have awakened something that cannot be put back to sleep." The decision hung heavy. Attack Earth now and risk a war that might inspire others, or hold back and watch Earth grow stronger. Either choice carried danger. The Council had expected obedience, but instead they had planted fear. Fear of Earth, fear of what it could become. Meanwhile, in quiet corners of the galaxy, smaller civilizations listened to the news with hope. For if Earth could stand against the Council, perhaps they could too. The seeds of rebellion once crushed began to stir again, and it all began with 3 simple sentences. Back on Earth, night fell over cities. Lights glowed. People gathered in streets repeating the words of the reply. "We do not bow, we do not kneel, we do not surrender." They said it as chants, as prayers, as promises. The world was still afraid, but the fear no longer ruled them. Something else had taken its place. Defiance. In the darkness of space, fleets began to move, some towards Earth, some away from it. The galaxy was shifting, its balance breaking, and all because humanity had spoken not with weakness but with fire. The reply was unexpected, but its echo would change the fate of stars. The reply from Earth did not stay in the Council chamber. It spread faster than light could travel, carried by whispers, by intercepted transmissions, by traitors who never kept secrets. Soon the words reached distant planets, moons, and stations. Everywhere, beings listened in shock. "We do not bow, we do not kneel, we do not surrender." On the mining colonies of the Red Moons, workers froze. As the message replayed on cracked screens, they had been under the Council's rule for centuries, paying heavy taxes, living under fear of punishment. Now, for the first time, they heard someone speak to the Council without fear, and something inside them stirred, something dangerous. Hope on the crystal towers of the Valari Empire. Nobles gathered in glittering halls. They laughed at the arrogance of humans. Primitive creatures, they cannot even travel far from their star. How dare they speak like conquerors, they mocked. But when the laughter faded, unease remained, because they all remembered that words had power, and these words carried the weight of fire. In shadowy markets at the edge of the galaxy, smugglers traded more than weapons. They traded stories, and the story of Earth spread like wildfire. The Council threatened them, and they answered with defiance, one smuggler said. "No one has done that in generations," another replied. And the listeners leaned closer, their eyes shining with something the Council feared more than weapons: belief. On war-torn worlds, where rebels hid in mountains and caves, the message became a song. They whispered it while sharpening blades. They shouted it before charging into hopeless battles. "We do not bow, we do not kneel, we do not surrender." The words gave them courage. Courage they had lost long ago. Earth had never meant to inspire the galaxy. But now, unintentionally, it had. Meanwhile, inside the Council itself, fear crept where arrogance once lived. The speaker raged in the chamber, demanding silence, demanding obedience. But the chamber was restless. The reptilian warlord leaned forward, his voice cutting through the noise. "The galaxy is listening. If we strike too slowly, they will see weakness. If we strike too hard, they will see fear. The insectoid queen spread her wings. Already small colonies speak of rebellion. Already whispers grow louder. Earth's words have become more dangerous than their weapons. The archivist's voice, soft and glowing, carried across the chamber. You have made a mistake. You wanted to show power, but instead you revealed weakness. You showed the galaxy that the Council fears Earth. Otherwise, why threaten them at all? The speaker's body shimmered with anger. They are children. They cannot touch us, it roared. But deep inside, even the speaker knew the truth. The Council had woken something it could not control. On Earth, the effects of the reply were growing too. Factories worked day and night, not just for survival but for preparation. Weapons were built faster, satellites reinforced, soldiers trained with new unity. But beyond the weapons, something else was stronger: human resolve. The people of Earth had tasted fear and turned it into defiance. That defiance now echoed into space, and space was listening. In secret fleets, far from Council eyes, smaller powers began to move. Some prepared to watch, some prepared to strike, and some prepared to ally. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power in the galaxy trembled, and all because a small blue planet refused to kneel. The Council tried to silence the message, banning its spread. But the harder they tried, the more it spread, on the frozen worlds of the North clusters. Slaves scratched the words into walls. On desert planets, rebels painted the sentences on broken ships. On great stations, mercenaries repeated the lines before going to war. The message had become more than words. It had become a symbol. Fear in the galaxy was no longer just fear of the Council. It was fear of change, fear that the Council's control was breaking. And at the center of that fear stood Earth, still small, still fragile, but now larger in legend than any empire. Back in the chamber, the Council argued day and night. Some screamed for Earth's destruction, others whispered caution. But one truth was clear: Earth had become more dangerous with words than it ever could with weapons, because words spread, and once they spread, they could not be taken back. As the debate raged, the archivist whispered one last warning. If Earth calls this peace, what will their war look like? The question hung in the chamber unanswered, for even the greatest empires did not dare imagine it. In the shadows of space, fleets moved quietly, rebels sharpened their blades, traitors shared their whispers, and across the stars, the words of Earth still echoed. We do not bow, we do not kneel, we do not surrender. The galaxy was afraid, but not just of Earth. It was afraid of what Earth had already begun to awaken. After Earth's reply shook the stars, there was no turning back. The Galactic Council debated, the galaxy whispered, but Earth moved in silence. The world knew war might come, and so it began to prepare. Not just in armies or weapons, but in spirit, in unity, in will. Factories across, nations ran without rest. Engines roared, sparks flew. Steel turned into machines of defense. Old factories once used for cars or planes now forged parts for satellites, drones and rockets. Nations that had been rivals shared blueprints, traded engineers, and opened their gates to one another. It was the first time in human history that the entire planet built together. In the deserts of Africa, long-range launch pads rose from the sand. In the frozen fields of Siberia, new reactors came alive. In the oceans, submarines carried silent cargo, weapons never tested before. And above all, the skies filled with satellites, each one armed, each one watching. Earth was no longer only looking at the stars with wonder. Now it looked with suspicion, but preparation was not only about steel and fire, it was also about knowledge. Scientists from every corner of the planet gathered in hidden labs. They studied the Council's signal, breaking it apart, searching for weaknesses. They tested alien language, alien code, alien rhythm. For if the Council spoke again, humanity wanted to be ready to answer faster, sharper, stronger. In one underground lab, Rosa, the young scientist who first caught the signal, worked day and night. Her eyes were tired, her hands trembling, but her voice steady. They may have fleets, but we have something they do not, she said. Her colleague asked, "What is that?" She answered, "We have desperation, and desperation creates innovation." And her words spread among her peers, becoming a quiet truth. In military bases, soldiers trained harder than ever before. Exercises ran until dawn, drills repeated until bodies collapsed from exhaustion. But no one complained. They all knew what was at stake. No soldier fought only for their flag anymore. They fought for Earth. That word alone gave them strength. In schools, children learned the 3 lines of Earth's reply by heart. They wrote it on walls, whispered it before sleep, repeated it like a prayer. We do not bow. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. Even the youngest understood now that their world had been challenged, and they too would stand against it in their own way. But not everyone believed in war. In temples, in churches, in mosques, in quiet rooms, millions prayed for peace. They asked that the council would see reason, that the galaxy would not burn. Even so, their prayers carried the same resolve. Peace was hoped for, but surrender was not. As Earth prepared, spies and scouts reported movements near the edges of the solar system. Strange readings from telescopes, flickers of unknown ships, shadows that moved too fast to be asteroids. The council was watching, maybe testing, maybe waiting, but Earth did not flinch. Instead, every sighting only pushed humanity to build faster, to prepare harder. In one hidden command center, the general with silver hair studied star maps. His eyes traced every possible path the council might take. He knew the truth. Humanity could not stop the entire galaxy. But he also knew another truth. If humanity struck hard enough early enough, they could make the galaxy fear touching Earth again. And sometimes fear was stronger than victory. Around him, young officers asked questions. What if they attack with fleets larger than our skies? One asked. The general's voice was steady. Then we show them that even if Earth burns, it burns with teeth. The officers nodded, their fear turning into fire. Preparations spread into culture. Artists painted Earth rising against the stars. Musicians sang of defiance. Storytellers created legends of the coming storm. In every corner of the world, humans prepared not only with weapons, but with spirit. It was no longer only about survival. It was about proving something. Proving that humanity was more than prey. The Galactic Council watched all this with unease. Spies returned with reports of factories, of drills, of strange new weapons, and more dangerous than all of it, of unity. The Council had seen Earth divided before, nations fighting each other. But now that division was gone, and a united Earth was a dangerous Earth. As days passed, the preparations became something greater. It was no longer defense. It was transformation. Earth was changing, becoming something new. A world that once looked at the stars with curiosity, now looked with fire. And the galaxy felt that fire even from afar. In the quiet of night, Rosa looked up from her lab. Through a small window, she saw the stars, the same stars that held their enemies. Her voice was soft, but full of determination. We are ready, whatever comes, we are ready. And her words, though spoken only to herself, carried the spirit of billions. Earth had prepared, not perfectly, not completely, but enough to send a message not only to the Council, but to the galaxy. Humanity would not wait to be destroyed. Humanity would stand, fight, and if needed, rise higher than it had ever risen before. The preparations were done. Now all that remained was the silence before the storm. And the storm was coming. The galaxy was no longer the same. Once the Council ruled with unquestioned power, its words like law carved into the stars. Now that power trembled, shaken by the reply of a single world, a small blue planet called Earth. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the speaker stood tall. Its metallic form flickered with anger as it repeated Earth's message before the assembly. We do not bow. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. The words echoed, again as if the chamber itself mocked the council. Silence followed, heavy and cold. The reptilian warlord broke that silence, his voice sharp as claws. We should have crushed them the moment they spoke. Now their words spread like disease. The insectoid queen answered, her wings clicking. And if we crush them now, What will the galaxy see? Not strength, but fear. The chamber erupted, voices colliding, accusations flying. Some demanded war, others demanded caution, but no one agreed. The archivist's light dimmed as it spoke slowly. You cannot undo what has been spoken. You cannot silence what has already been heard. Even if Earth is destroyed, their words will live on and their legend will inspire others. The speaker struck its staff, sparks of fury in its voice. Then we make their legend a warning. We erase them so completely that no one dares repeat their mistake. But doubt had rooted deep in the chamber, and doubt was poison to the Council. Far from the chamber, in distant colonies, the people listened, on mining moons, on frozen worlds, in hidden rebel camps. Earth's words had become fire. They repeated them in secret gatherings, carved them into walls, whispered them. In the dark, the Council had ruled with fear for centuries, but now fear itself was breaking, and at the center of that break stood Earth. Back on Earth, silence filled the skies. Every radar, every telescope searched, waiting for fleets that might appear. But nothing came, only shadows at the edge of sensors, faint signals that vanished as quickly as they arrived. The world was tense, every city alive with whispers. Will they attack? Will they come tomorrow? Will they come tonight? Yet through the fear, the fire of preparation burned. Humanity did not sit idle. It stood ready. The general with silver hair stood in the command center, maps of the solar system glowing before him. His voice was calm, but his eyes sharp. They are waiting, watching, deciding if they strike, he said. A young officer asked, what if they don't strike? The general's reply was cold but steady. Then the galaxy will see Earth not as prey, but as a rival. In underground labs, scientists tested new weapons, weapons never seen before. Energy shields, long-range cannons, systems to blind enemy, sensors. They worked with desperation, knowing time was short, and every breakthrough felt like a heartbeat. Every success, a small promise that Earth would not fall without a fight. The people too prepared in their own way. Farmers stored food, builders reinforced shelters, doctors trained for mass casualties. Even ordinary families spoke to their children about survival, about courage, about standing tall. Earth had never been so united. Not through politics, not through wealth, but through necessity. For the first time, humanity was not just many nations, it was one world. The galaxy watched all this with unease. Smugglers carried stories, rebels carried hope, and empires carried fear. The Council had expected obedience, but instead, it had awakened something far worse, not only defiance, but belief. Belief that even the strongest could be challenged. Belief that even the Council was not untouchable. The speaker called again for war, but fewer voices answered with certainty. The reptilian warlord snarled, "Strike now, before it is too late." The insectoid queen hissed, "And lose fleets to a planet that has nothing? If they destroy even one of our armadas, the galaxy will laugh at us, not fear us." The archivist only whispered, its light flickering. The galaxy holds its breath, waiting to see what we do, and perhaps waiting to see what Earth will do. Back on Earth, Rosa stood outside the observatory one night. She looked at the stars, countless and cold, each one a possible enemy. Yet instead of fear, she felt something different, a strange calm, a strange pride. "They are watching us," she whispered. "But we are watching them too." Her words echoed the spirit of billions. Humanity was ready, not because it was the strongest, but because it had chosen not to bow. The galaxy waited. Every empire, every colony, every rebel, every slave, all listened for the next move. Would the Council unleash fire upon Earth? Would Earth strike first? Or would silence continue heavier than war? No one knew, and in that uncertainty lay danger. The story of Earth had become more than a single world. It had become a test of whether defiance could survive against tyranny, a test of whether courage could echo louder than fear. The Council knew this, the galaxy knew this, and Earth knew it too. And so, as fleets waited in the dark, as weapons hummed in secret bases, as whispers filled every corner of the galaxy, the universe itself seemed to hold still, as if the stars paused in their burning, as if the void itself leaned closer, waiting for what would come next, for the next word, the next strike, the next spark that would decide the fate of worlds. The galaxy held its breath, and in that silence, Earth stood tall, not bowed, not kneeling, not surrendering, but waiting, ready to face whatever came from the stars.